The Seahawks officially ushering in the 2025 season with their 11-player draft class, undrafted free agents, and a bunch of tryout players descending on the VMAC for rookie minicamp. Jalen Milroe impressing, but maybe not in a way that you were expecting on day one. We're going to be diving in here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here on Blue Friday by my co-host, Nick Lee, and a special thanks to all the 12s out there who are listening in and make Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week, whether you're in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or Los Angeles, California. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. The Seahawks now halfway through their rookie minicamp. They had their first practice today, the first on-field practice to kick off the 2025 offseason program. A great chance to see most of the draft picks in action, and that included quarterback Jalen Milroe. We're going to be discussing how he impressed maybe in a way that wasn't quite expected here in this first day of rookie minicamp. Plus, we've got our annual rookie superlatives. We're going to take a deep dive into best fit, best trade, and a bunch more. Going to be a really fun episode brought your way courtesy of the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Xbox or Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Maybe the most surprising pick, not necessarily for me, but for a lot of 12s out there in the Seahawks 2025 draft haul, was at pick number 92 in the third round. Jalen Milroe, the quarterback out of Alabama. A lot of people suspected Seattle was not going to draft a QB after Drew Lock was re-signed early in April. And obviously Sam Darnold coming in as the new starter to replace Geno Smith, who was traded to the Raiders. But the board actually fell the way that the Seahawks needed it to take a chance on a quarterback, and they picked Milroe, who, as we've talked about a lot throughout the pre-draft process, Nick, obviously there's plenty of flaws in his game that need to be cleaned up. He's not ready to play right away. But there are very few quarterback prospects that have 4.39 speed and have a cannon for an arm that can throw 75 yards downfield with ease. And Jalen Milroe can do both of those things. There's plenty of things he's going to have to improve upon in his game. But I think something that has clearly been proven here already here in this first week since Jalen Milroe was drafted by the Seahawks that maybe was being discounted, and I'll even sit here and say maybe I was discounting it a little bit more than I should have. I'd heard things that Jalen Milroe was an outstanding presence in the locker room, an on-field leader. I have been to a bunch of rookie minicamps since I started covering the Seattle Seahawks, and typically, and I think this is probably how it is around the entire league for teams that have rookie minicamps, Nick, it is like bringing together 70 Pee Wee League kids that have never played together and saying, okay, we gave you 24 hours to learn like 50 plays, and now we're going to go scrimmage and do drill work. It sounds like a nightmare, and a lot of times it's extremely sloppy. But this was the cleanest rookie minicamp practice that I have ever seen at a Seattle Seahawks rookie minicamp, at least. And I think the big reason why was Jalen Milroe, just his presence, the veteran presence, and you can sense it in interviews. The press conference that he had today after practice, just the way he carries himself, everyone followed his lead. And Nick Manowari on defense was kind of the same way. But this was just a really impressive display of leadership from Jalen Milroe. And before we take a deeper dive, I want to play just a clip from his press conference today, just to give you a sense of what this young man is all about. And it isn't just poised behind the microphone. You can see it on the field too. But this is one of the reasons the Seattle Seahawks fell in love with this kid in the draft process. Take a listen.
How much do you see playing at Alabama already paying off with this process? Being at a program that consistently kicks out a lot of NFL players, there's the expectation that we're going to be a pro program. How are you seeing that already playing out here, coming to the league and maybe making the acclimation process a little easier for you?
For sure. Like, number one, like the center of excellence, no matter what we're doing, no matter if it's a walkthrough, everybody's getting a rep. Like, whether you're on the field or you're off the field, you're getting a rep. You know, something that was emphasized while I was at school, I'll never forget. We was at spring practice, and one of our coaches called the whole group up. He called one of our players on the team, said, hey, how many reps did you get? So, of course, he sat there, scratched his head, trying to think how many reps he got. He said, I'm going to stop you right there. You got all of it if you did it right. You got a mental rep and a physical rep. And so I think that's important for all of us, you know, as we're trying to achieve success and achieve greatness and whatever we want to do on the field. I think that's important.
Look, you're not going to win Super Bowls with rookie minicamp press conferences. So let's not sit here and overreact to this. But Nick, I was blown away today. There were several other questions. I asked 3 or 4 questions during his press conference, but just his understanding of his flaws in his game and how he's going to attack the lower body and his mechanics. He was very forthcoming about that and attacking defenses and the preparation that goes into that. And just the need to be focused on every single snap, even if you're not in, as you just mentioned there, that is the poise of a 5, 6, 7-year veteran. You just don't see many young quarterbacks that come in like that. So again, I wonder if we are not looking at some of those non-athletic intangibles this kid brings to the table that give him a better chance to be able to develop into potentially that starting quarterback down the line.
Well, I think we're all, football people here and listening or diving into this and understand that the quarterback position, I would say, is 30-something% can you throw the football well, 30-something percent can you process a defense, and then the other 30 to 40% is mental makeup, maturity, leadership, and sounds like he has that part down pat. I love that quote during the draft process where a team asks him, what do you need to get better at? And his response was, well, how much time do you have? and the team saying, aren't you concerned this pointing all these out might be detrimental? And he basically said, quote, you should be concerned with any guy that comes in this room who hasn't played a down of NFL football and doesn't tell you that he has weaknesses or that he isn't working on them. Plus, it's an insult because that means he doesn't think you know how to watch film. And just responses like that, military parents, and like you said, Alabama football program, championship pedigree, been coached by Nick Saban, Tommy Rees, Kalen DeBoer, Bill O'Brien. Also, we kind of forget that he was also coached a little bit by Bill O'Brien. So he's got the coaching, obviously some of the greatest to ever do it on the offensive side of the ball and just overall in general in football. And then, of course, his upbringing, his mental makeup, his maturity. I mean, self-aware, humble, disciplined, respectful. I think I'm not going to name names, but maybe a few things that certain rookie quarterbacks or two in this class might be lacking. I think that he's I'm not going to say the full package because sure, he has lots to work on, but I think the mental makeup, maturity, leadership aspects, the self-awareness are just as impressive to me as he was the starting quarterback of the Alabama Crimson Tide and played in some really big games and played really well in some really big games. And he's coming in here as a very humble, self-aware rookie. I don't imagine at such a premier program with such high amounts of success translating to the NFL, I imagine a lot of those guys come out, quarterback or not, maybe entitled or maybe thinking that they know more than they do about the NFL. And I think that's a great place to start with Milroe is where he's at mentally. I think obviously there's time. There needs to be some time to develop him as a starting quarterback, as a passer, and just the whole package itself. But I think this is a fantastic. He is the ideal ball of clay, and he is, and hopefully the right mixture of clay with the people handling the clay. The clay's there. He's the ideal prospect.
And I will say this, look, it's a May 2nd practice. There were still some throws that got away from him in today's practice. There were a couple times that he had some ducks that came quacking out of his hand. It happened a couple times. And look, it's going to happen to all quarterbacks. We saw Geno Smith have that happen sometimes on the field. You're not going to be perfect, especially in a practice setting. But I will say this. I thought he looked much better getting the football out of his hands with a wider base on the short passes, especially in the second part of practice. Early on, it looked like he was kind of doing those tight feet again, and that just leads to discombobulation of all your mechanics. But he made a couple beautiful throws during the scrimmage period to Elijah Arroyo and Ricky White II that if fans were in the crowd, they on the berm, they would have been fired up seeing those throws. And so there were certainly some plays today that you're like, ooh, but look, it's non-padded. It's not real football yet, but these are critical practices, especially for a rookie quarterback. And after seeing the way the quarterbacks played like last year, where I literally said this today on the sideline when Milroe completed the first pass in the scrimmage period, I said, well, we already have more completions than we had the entire time last year. And that's probably a true statement, to be honest. But you're seeing all those physical tools. You get to see the way that he runs around a little bit out there. But I was really impressed by the way that he carried himself. And I think that does matter. And again, everybody was following his lead. Like these practices tend to be really sloppy, and it wasn't perfect. But, man, that was as crisp of a practice as I have seen. And, you can give Mike McDonald and his staff credit for that too. But I felt like Jalen Milroe and Nick Emenwari were the two big reasons why they were able to have that successful practice, because they were leading out there. And so that was really exciting to see on the field. And we'll see what happens as we move forward. The vets get there. But look, the intangibles, non-athletic wise, the intangibles are there for Jalen Milroe to get the backing in the locker room, which, look, we'll see what that ends up meaning. But if he ends up getting the attention of veterans and the work ethic that he puts in, this has a chance to be a guy that down the line we could have some pretty interesting conversations that are becoming at the quarterback spot. When we come back, look, we do this every year after the draft. It's time to dish out our draft superlatives, looking at Seattle's draft class. And we have a lot more options to choose from this year, which makes it a lot more fun when you have that many players in an intriguing draft class. We're going to get to several of those coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25. Nick and I sure enjoy to throw the hit sticks on that game. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. If you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable, and it's easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm Corbin Smith. He's Nick Lee. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. We are now at the halfway point of the rookie minicamp. There was a time that used to be 3 practices, but at least in this case, the Seahawks have 2 of them that are open to media. We had the first one today. We'll have the second one coming out tomorrow on Saturday. Let's get to our annual rookie superlatives. And Nick, I know you and I always have a ton of fun with this. And every year we come up with a few interesting new superlatives. I know we got a couple really fun ones that we're going to be dishing out on today's show. And how this works, I'm going to read off the superlative. And Nick, you get the mic first, because we always got to give the mic to the better of the two to start off our show here. So without further ado, let's get to our first superlative here. And these are going to be really fun. Our first one here, most pro ready. And Nick, I have a feeling I already know where you're going here. You wrote these on our website, but I'm interested to see who you've got here for your most pro ready Seahawk from this draft class.
Well, I'm going to go with a guy who's 6'3", 220, and runs a 4.38. That seems pretty pro ready to me. And not only that, but was an All-American in the SEC. I don't know how much more NFL ready you can get than being an All-American safety defensive back and the SEC, and that's Nick Emenwari, of course. He's Adonis with the physically, and but not just that. I mean, he's not just he's not just on Muscle Beach there. He's he's really, an instinctive player, makes some great plays in the ball. And so just that, the pure, just physical gifts, along with his success on the field in the SEC, what he's shown on tape, with his mental makeup and how he can process an offense. Nick Emmanwori for me, I think, and I'm not sure it's really that close.
I'm going to surprise people. Nick Emmanwori is a player that I think is going to play a lot of snaps early, but I'm going with Torrey Horton. And I know he didn't practice much today because he's coming off a knee injury. But look, I've watched this kid for the last 3 years. I saw him play really well against Travis Hunter at Colorado. Travis Hunter was number 2 overall pick. Very rarely got picked on by opposing receivers, but Horton had a huge game against him. I just think you're talking about a really mature kid that has 4.35 speed, is 6'2", can high point the football, can do some things after the catch. I think you're just talking about a mature young man coming into the league. He's going to be healthy when the season starts. I don't know. I just think Torrey Horton has a chance to come in and say, okay, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I know you signed a free agent deal, but I'm already the better version of the two. Similar players, but I can do more. I think Torrey Horton's going to be a bigger part of this offense maybe than people anticipate, and certainly a better player than a 5th-round pick would demonstrate. Next one here, best fit. Who is the best fit in terms of draft picks for this Seahawks squad?
I'm going with the low-hanging fruit here. I mean, a guy who can play all 5 offensive line positions, really. I mean, I know they're going to slide Gray Zabel into the left guard spot for now, but just a guy who has experience playing all 5 positions, played all 3 interior positions in the Senior Bowl. Talk about it's more best fits, yes, but also just out of necessity, he has to fit. But also, I think he's, what's the word? He's almost like scheme proof. I just think he's got the athleticism and the size to really just be scheme proof along the offensive line. So especially if he really can stick in that left guard spot, Gray Zabel, I mean, that's as good as it gets, I think.
I've got to go with Emmanwori on this one because Mike Macdonald, I'm just picturing what was going on in the draft room when this pick was coming down. And quite frankly, at 18, I'm sure that it was an easy decision to go with Zabel, but there had to be like some programming in Mike Macdonald's brain. Like, I want Emmanwori. I want this super athletic, huge safety with ball skills. Like, this is the kind of guy that he craves to have in his defense. We saw what he did with Kyle Hamilton, and this guy's got freak athletic traits compared to Kyle Hamilton. Now, I think Hamilton was better with his instincts overall coming into the league. But to me, if Mike Macdonald, I said this on the radio a few days ago, I'm going to say it again. If Mike Macdonald could create a safety in a lab to put in his defense, this would be the guy. So how can you have anybody that's a better fit than that? So Emmanwori is my pick on that one. Best draft day trade. Look, I know they made a bunch of trades, but Nick, this one seems pretty self-explanatory here.
It does. I know that the price was fairly steep, giving up picks 52 and 82 to move up to 35 with the Titans to get Emmanwori. But like you said, we're talking about an Avenger in the secondary. Just insert superhero here. I like that. This is basically Mike Macdonald on Madden doing creative player with with a safety and Nick Emmanwori. So I think the price will be worth it. It certainly was the splashiest trade the Seahawks made on draft day. Not the splashiest trade along the NFL draft, but I think it's up there on the list. Not Jaguars, Browns, but certainly maybe in that next tier. Just with the sheer, moving around day 2, not just day 2, but round 2 to get a guy who many had in the first round that you got basically with Zabel and Emmanwori, basically 2 first-round talents. I'm calling that a win.
Yeah, I think that it was a huge win because they were talking about trading into the first round to get him. They had the same grade on him as Gray Zabel. So they got 2 players that they had the same grade on that they could have easily picked either one of them at pick 18. They got both of them. You didn't have to trade into the first round to do it. They would have had to give up more to trade into the back part of the first round. So to me, that's easily the best trade. Biggest steal. This one actually was kind of hard for me because I already mentioned one player that could very easily be in this discussion. I'm curious where you sit on this one.
Well, I actually debated Emmanwori just with him being fallen to a second round, but I'm going to go with a guy who many had maybe in the 4th or 5th round, but we saw how just heavy the running back position was, or how deep it was, I should say, in this class, Damian Martinez, he was a guy I targeted from the beginning that, hey, when the Seahawks are kind of running out of, when the draft is kind of running thin, the Seahawks are running out of picks, maybe slide one in there and get Damian Martinez in a Seahawks uniform. And lo and behold, they did. And I think he just kind of got pushed down the list just from the sheer depth in another draft. Perhaps he is a fourth rounder. But 6 feet, 217. If you're looking for a guy who, if you looked at all the running backs that went, post day 2, and say, pick one that could maybe turn into a type of Marshawn Lynch. That's a kind of a crazy thing to say, but Damian Martinez would be the closest thing to that, I think, just with the way he runs, his size. Obviously, I said post day 2, so that's a big stretch, but just where they got him and where he was kind of being projected, plus with the uncertainty of the running back room, especially after next year with Ken Walker's contract, you could tell me, me from the future could appear. I just came back from 2026 and Damian Martinez just ran for 900 yards. I mean, I might believe that.
I'm going with Ricky White, and I've been preaching this really since the draft went down. I had a 4th-round grade on Ricky White, and look, I don't say this saying that they are pure comparisons because there are differences, but I see a lot of Doug Baldwin in Ricky White III's game, because when Doug Baldwin came from Stanford, he played some special teams for the Seahawks. And if you were at Seahawks practice, you always saw him trying to work on blocking punts. He would rotate into those drills. Ricky White III has been doing that on the field in bunches. He is a fantastic special teams player, and that by itself at 238 makes him valuable. But 2 times in a row, 1,000+ yard receiver at UNLV, and he didn't have great quarterback play there necessarily. 11 touchdowns last year. I just think he's got some Doug Baldwin in his game. He's a really sound run blocker. He gets after it for not being a big guy, can create some after the catch. He's a smooth route runner that does a really good job out of his breaks. And so to me, Ricky White III, I like both receivers they drafted, and I think they got great value for those guys. But to me, 238 for Ricky White, that truly is a steal, in my opinion. And let's get to the biggest boom or bust. This one, there's a couple guys that you maybe could go with here that maybe don't pan out and do anything, or they could end up being absolute studs.
I think this position, this type of player is in of itself boom or bust. And that is Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami. At 50, I was like, whoa, okay. They took Arroyo at 50. I didn't see that coming necessarily. But of course, 6'5", 250 with sub 4.70 speed. Just really fluid athlete at that size, good hands. Not exactly going to make anyone forget about Zach Miller blocking. But I think there's the high end of his athletic skills and pass catching skills. He could be a very, very, very really a good pass catching athletic tight end out in space, a type of Noah Fant. I say boom or bust because one, taking him at 50, there's the bust potential for me also includes the people that they passed on, but also that kind of tight end if it's not maybe not a fit in that offense, or maybe he's asked to block a bit more and he can't, or he's can't quite get that separation he had at Miami in the passing game over the middle, whatever that happens. But that's something that I think he has the athleticism to overcome any other deficiencies, out in space passing, but just seems like a boom or bust prospect where he's either, borderline Pro Bowler and putting up big numbers, or unfortunately, maybe he turns in. I hope he doesn't turn into, kind of what Noah Fant's mostly been, which would be disappointing.
Yeah, look, I thought about going Arroyo here because when I gave out my grades, that would have matched up. I gave a B- that pick for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned. But I got to go with Jaylen Milroe in this one because I think that you're looking at a situation. I don't know if there's a mid-ground. He's either going to be a third-rounder that in a few years is going to fade into obscurity, and, maybe he's just a package player like a Taysom Hill. Or if you are able to unlock some of those issues that he has in his game and you're able to shore him up with all the talent he's got, you got a top 5 quarterback potentially on your hands if you're able to fix everything. So to me, it's not as big of a deal when you're talking about pick 92 versus pick 50, but there is a very wide gap there in terms of what you could end up having from Jalen Milroe, which leads into the last one we've got here before we go to the third segment, best superstar odds. Nick, I'm going to go with the same guy here. just because, as I just mentioned, Jalen Milroe, and we said this throughout the pre-draft process, even when we had our Marvel characters and we were talking about some of the deficiencies in his game, and you calling him Daredevil. Look, if they can get those issues sorted out, this is one of those guys. 92 is where I thought they might consider, just because the potential that is there, if you are able to unlock that, can be an absolute home run. This guy can be a superstar in the NFL. And at the quarterback position, that takes the cake over any other spot. So I'm going Jalen Milroe there. Yeah,
same thing. Just the level of visibility that would come with Milroe working out at quarterback, just especially with the guy he appears to be. If he can rise to that level, I think he would handle that very, very well. So if he does blossom into what we hope he can be, we have absolute superstar, and he would be able to handle it.
When we come back, we're going to continue these rookie superlatives. We got a bunch more fun ones that we are going to dive into. I know Nick's favorite one will be coming up first here in the next segment. We'll get to that coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, on Blue Friday by my co-host Nick Lee. And a special thanks to all the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Continuing our rookie superlatives, this is one of our favorite episodes coming out of the draft, particularly when you have a large draft class, because you have a lot more options for these. And so, remember 2022, it was like, we have 3 guys to choose from for every single one of them. That was the shortest superlative show that we've ever had on Locked On Seahawks. Let's get to our next category here. And Nick, this is the one that I know that you made this one up, and I know that you're really excited about it. Those of you that don't know the reference here, just look up Football Sickos on X, and you'll find some interesting images that pop up. Best Football Sickos pick, and I know who you were going with on this one.
I was thinking of you when I was making this one, because you are a football sicko, and that is a term of endearment. And I can see it now. Robbie Oots gets a carry inside the 5-yard line and scores a touchdown or something. And the entire Lumen field, it's just deafening. Ooh, I can just see it now. Or even if he just makes a catch for a 3-yard gain in the middle of the field, I could see that happening. But just the old school throwback. I think it was you that posted a picture of him at rookie minicamp. Oh my goodness. The dude is I just started the show Reacher. Bro looks like Jack Reacher. I mean, he is just a refrigerator.
Look, now that you're saying this, for our listeners that did not see this on social media,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like if
you want to talk about a tank, Robbie Oots is a tank.
So just thinking of the fullback fits. Fullbacks themselves are for football sickos, but this guy should be the poster child. So yeah, he gets. I had to put him in there with the superlative.
Yeah, that's a good one. Look, it would be, for me, that would be low hanging fruit. I'm going to go to a guy that didn't get to practice today, and we don't know when he's going to practice, but Riley Mills is a player that football sickos absolutely will love, because he's kind of got, when you watch the film, he's kind of got psychopath tendencies. Like this dude, he's a really nice kid, but like when he comes on the field, it's almost like Clark Kent to Superman type thing. And he just goes balls to the wall every single play. He's the kind of guy that football sickos just fall in love with, because he just gets after it. He's physical. He loves the game. You can tell when he interviews how much he loves the game and how passionate he is about football. And he's just kind of got that old school work ethic and game. And he's able to get to the quarterback. He's able to stuff the run. So I think that he is the defensive equivalent of what Robbie Oots is on offense. Most questionable decision, Nick. Look, any draft you can have a questionable decision, even one that's getting highly touted like Seattle's draft. There's always things you can look back on and say, well, I questioned that a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of already mentioned it with Elijah Arroyo. Part of what I'm holding above them picking Arroyo is who is still on the board. At cornerback, which Seahawks didn't really take inside the draft itself. You still had Benjamin Morrison, Darian Porter, Siobhan Revelle, all on the offensive line. Maybe they double down and get Tate Ratledge to pair with Gray Zabel. That would be just a they would need an extra semi truck of Busch Light, I think, in the offensive line room.
They'd have to change their sponsorships, I think.
Or guys like Landon Jackson were still there, Darius Alexander. So you could do that with any draft, of course. This guy and this guy was still on the board when they took this bum. You could do that for 50 years, but this was one where I was like, hey, these guys are on the board. I'd really like to see the Seahawks take one of these guys. Oh, Elijah Arroyo. Okay. I hope that blows up in my face, and I hope it's a great pick, but just seeing some of the names, I really hope some of those names don't turn into superstars for that fact.
I'm going to go even more specific, not taking advantage of a historically good defensive tackle class. They did not draft a single one. Now, Riley Mills can play 3-tech in Mike McDonald's system, but I'm talking guys that could play the nose tackle position as well as 3-tech. There was an abundance of them, and there were plenty of them that were available in those middle rounds, and Seattle had chances. So they could look back on that and say, man, we should have gone that route. But to me, that's nitpicking. You could argue about the cornerbacks as well. But I thought with this DT class that they were going to draft at least one, potentially more than that, and they didn't pick one. So that could end up being something they look back on like, well, that's the one thing we regret from this draft class. Day 3 sleeper, the biggest day 3 sleeper. So this isn't just the steal. Now we're talking day 3, maybe somebody that really is hovering under the radar that could end up being something.
Well, you already mentioned him. I'm not sure he's going to be going under any radars with you tooting his horn, and that's Torrey Horton, receiver out of Colorado State. I was trying to make some Horton here's a who thing. It didn't quite work out, so we're going to keep moving on. I got 3 kids. Okay, give me a break. But 6'2", he's got the size, almost 200 pounds. I think if he fills out the frame a bit more, he could really be something. You make a Marquez Valdez-Scantling comp, which I think is great. I think there can be more to his game even than MVS if he kind of blossoms and develops. And he could be a really, really nice number 2 or 3 next to JSN with the different skill sets and different size that he offers. With that size and speed, clearly as a day 3 guy, there's some molding of the clay that needs to happen. But with the physical traits, with the speed and the mental makeup, like you referred to, I think there's a lot there to work with.
This pick I'm going to make differently than if we would have done this morning. And I know that it's rookie minicamp. I'm not going to overreact to it. But there are certain things that you can see on a field when you aren't playing real football that jump out. And Bryce Cabledew, I did not expect that guy to be as big as what he was. And not in a bad way. Like this guy, and he was smooth operating. You could tell he's got the athleticism. You can see why he tested really well. And those are things that you can see in these practices. But I was just stunned because I did not expect number 77 to come out there. I expected that he was going to be a little lighter, converted tackle, is kind of lean. And that dude's got a big upper body. He's got a powerful lower body. And I posted some pictures coming out of camp, and I noticed there were plenty of fans that had the same sentiments. They're like, I didn't realize Cabledew was such a unit. And he is a big dude to go with that athleticism. So don't count Bryce Cabledew out here. And I know there's a few scouts out there, including Lance Zierlein from NFL.com, that think he's a future starter. That is a player to keep an eye on because this scheme is really good for him. And now looking at his size, I'm like, wait a second. He might be able to hold up better than I thought he was going to in the interior in the NFL. All right, this is the one that I came up with, though. I'm going to have some fun with here. The coach's pet. The player that the coaching staff as a whole just falls in love with. And maybe there's some benefits to that for that player.
Well, I'm going to go with a repeat, unfortunately, because I just couldn't think of a better one for me. It's Robbie Utes, and it depends on, I guess, what the coach.
That surprises me. I was not expecting that.
Well, I think it's just whose pet is this? Which coach? I guess is the question. Because if it's Clint Kubiak, I could see him maybe getting kind of caught up in the moment and using Utes too much, and like, okay, we don't need our fullback to have 7 carries this game, or something. Just with how fun of a concept this is with Utes, and just you could just tell that he's a willing spirit as a fullback, and just, of course, like I said, he's built like a TV character that beats up all the bad guys. So all that together with it, I think it's just the aura of the fullback. I think is what's making this the coach's pet for me.
I'm going with Riley Mills. I mean, heck, John Schneider admitted that, it was a joke, obviously, but Adon Durde he's like, well, I don't know that he would have been employed with us on Monday if I wouldn't have picked Riley Mills. It's that lunchbox dog mentality that he plays with. That, to me, Mike Macdonald is going to love that kid. I think he's a guy, the offensive coaching staff is going to, there's going to be a love-hate relationship. Like, I'm sick of that dude being in the backfield and ruining plays on the practice field, but dang, do I like his skill set and just the way that he carries himself too. I just think Riley Mills is going to be that guy that eventually the coaches are like, well, I'm going to give this guy benefit of the doubt here because I really like how he plays the game. Best pick with future in mind. This actually was the hardest one for me, and some fans might be like, well, there's one guy that immediately jumps out at a premium position, but I actually had a few guys that I considered for this one.
Yeah, again, I went with the low-hanging fruit, Jalen Milroe. I mean, just because you didn't pick him to make a huge impact in 2025. Now, again, like I've written, talk about low-hanging fruit, the Taysom Hill comp, which I think is almost a little insulting to Jalen Milroe at this point, which hurts me as a BYU guy to say. I think there's a lot more to Jalen Milroe than that. Just with the future in mind, because if you hit on Jalen Milroe as a franchise quarterback in 2026, 2027, and beyond, my goodness, with that mental makeup and that physical ability, yet, like you said, top 5 quarterback. Like if he hones in his passing ability and he becomes a pocket presence and actually can develop that as a skill instead of a deficiency, with the other physical and mental gifts he has, I can't think of 2 or 3, 4 quarterbacks I'd rather have if that really comes to fruition in the future.
I picked Nick Emenwari for this one because Seattle has 2 starting safeties on the roster. They're not in a position that he necessarily has to start. Now, if he goes out and steals a job, then that is a great development for the Seattle Seahawks. But they don't have to just give him a job. Like, they've got 2 really solid starters at the safety position. But just those ridiculous off-the-charts athletic metrics, and he added the fact that he was incredibly productive. He was an All-American, a consensus All-American, so it's not like he's just a workout warrior. But you are looking towards 2026, 2027, and beyond, at least from a roster standpoint. And again, if he goes in and he becomes an immediate starter just because you just can't keep him out of the lineup, that is a great – and now that trade-up just looks even better for you. But – you don't have to force the issue there. So I look at that as one that you're looking from long-term just as much as short-term, if not more for the future, just because of those incredible traits and getting a chance for Mike Macdonald to mold that ball of clay and further refine him. Think about just how good that he could be. Our last one here, most intriguing undrafted free agent.
This was a fun one too. Lots to pick from. I went with a position they didn't draft. I specifically kind of turned up the heat on a position where the Seahawks didn't draft and they needed a guy. Zy Alexander, the corner out of LSU. I think that he's got the size and 6'1", sub 4.6 speed. He's got the decent size and speed combo to hang with most receivers in the NFL. He's a disruptor of the ball in the air, played at a premier conference at a really tough position to play. I argue corner is one of the harder positions to play in all of football. So with all the uncertainty beyond 2025 at the corner position, aside from Devin Witherspoon, I think Zy Alexander is one to watch.
Everybody's going to be expecting me to say Jared Ivey. And look, I still think Jared Ivey's got a great, the way he was hitting that sled today, like you can just sometimes tell there are different dudes out there in these rookie mini camps. Jared Ivey's a guy, but I'm actually going to go at linebacker with Jackson Woodard, who was a really good player at UNLV that I was stunned was not drafted. Oh, by the way, today, Damian Martinez, a ball in his hands from Jalen Milroe, it bounced off his hands, and guess who picked it off and returned it to the house? Jackson Woodard. He had 4 interceptions last year for UNLV. He's a very natural cover linebacker, and he's another one of those guys who just looks like he doesn't belong here in a good way. With all these tryout guys, he looks like he belongs out there in training camp competing for snaps. So Jackson Woodard is actually the player that I'm most intrigued by right now, and Jared Ivey's a very close second. Those 2 guys are going to be a lot of fun to watch playing in Mike Macdonald's defense. And if you're a backup at either one of those spots, you better be looking in your rearview mirror and you better bring your A game because these guys are coming for roster spots. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Nick at NickLee51. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, I'm going to have a bonus episode from the VMAC because we're going to be wrapping up rookie minicamp. I'll be diving into some takeaways from the 2 days as we head towards OTAs and a bunch more coming up this offseason. Make sure that you're listening in and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Go Hawks.